I'm sitting here fiending now. All right, let her rip.
Well, Uper started the things right before we got on the pod. Took a couple shots of whiskey, and I think that it's going to be appropriate for some of the things that we heard this today. Welcome to another episode of Tigers Minor League Report podcast here on TigersMLReport.com. I am Rogelio. Still alongside me is Brandon, Day, Uper, and Mike. You can find us on Apple Podcasts or you ever listen to podcasts. And as always, please leave us a review, 5-star or otherwise. We've been getting some more candid comments. I got one today from Tony in regards to our Max Clark interview. And yes, I know that YouTube ads are ridiculous and it sucks, but unfortunately, I mean, even now YouTube's doesn't like YouTube's. You know what? Maybe I'll probably get shadow banned for this, but YouTube does kind of suck when it comes to even paying people. So, but
Yeah.
it is what it is. So. But yeah, there is going to be. This is one of those pods where we're going to be doing a lot of. It's an old bit that I used to do with Chris. We're going to bring
Therapy.
it back. That too. But the Avila translator, we dusted it off. And now it's called the Scott Harris translator. So we're going to be translating some of the Scott Harris comments today when he spoke to the media today in Orlando. We're going to be discussing the big free agent signing of Drew Anderson. That he's going to start to play 30. He was 1 year, $7 million, and then with a team option for $10 million. I believe that's the second part of the clause.
Yep.
And there's a reporter in LA that Brandon mentioned right before the podcast that swears up and down that Tarek Skubal is going to be traded to the Dodgers. And I did a trade proposal you can find over at the roundtable. And I feel like this is we've been talking about this ad nauseum because I'm really getting sick of it until something really happens. But yeah, so
it's just some guy. Yeah, I mean, it's just some reporter. It's not Ken Rosenthal. It's not Jeff Passan. So it's meaningless, really.
yeah. There's a lot of I guess I will say I was happy to see the response I got on my trade piece that it seemed reasonable. So I'm glad for that. Sorry, Brandon. I just realized I just saw you text. I was so preoccupied with a couple things before. Like you sent me the link, and I'm like, when you got on here, I'm like, oh, there you are.
No worries. I dug it out.
But yeah, so there's a lot to. Let's start with the Scott Harris stuff. Well, somebody made a comment about the Drew Anderson deal. Why? Luke Bonner on Twitter said why, but why Scott? Why Anderson? Well, they are trying to release. I think personally that they're trying to throw everything at a wall and see what sticks. Really. But let's start with the Sean here. He says we're tiny. Brandon's here after Scott Harris Blue White. I figured he'd be on the Lamb Pal. Okay.
We were talking about that before too. Like whenever you write anything about Scott Harris, like any big article of any sort, like you're gonna get ripped by people who think he's doing a great job. You're gonna get ripped by people who say you didn't rip him enough. It's standard. So I just kind of avoided it today. I knew how it was gonna go. I saw somebody cross posted it on Reddit, and the first comment was like, "This is all hindsight," and I was like, "Yeah, it's a review of the last 3 years." So hindsight is going to be part of the equation, my friend. So yeah, but what are you going to do? We're all frustrated. Fan base is frustrated. For a team that just made the postseason and won wild card series each of the last 2 years, I've never seen more misery in my life. And and Scott Harris, added more fuel to the fire this evening, as I'm sure we'll discuss. But yeah, I mean, I think it was pretty fair. I don't think Scott Harris is terrible. I just think when they came in here, the conceit that was that they were going to stack all these smart small moves on top of each other, and and eventually would make a big move when the time was right, and eventually get us to contention. And they haven't done that. They've hit on some pretty smart small moves. They've missed on a ton. They blew a third of the payroll on guys who were either replacement level or worse or didn't play last year. And there hasn't really been a big move. And, we're coming into Tarek Skubal's last season. So, I mean, I don't want to trade Tarek Skubal. I want them to try to win. But at this point, and after Scott Harris's quotes this evening, I'm pretty convinced that maybe the move is just to trade Tarek Skubal, because these guys just do not have it in them to make a big push. It doesn't seem like.
Yeah, I don't know if there's really a way to. I don't know. It's kind of frustrating in a way to see some of the things he said today, and I'll start with Gentlemen, Mike, Mike, go ahead. I got some thoughts on this. I'm just trying to fix what's going on YouTube. Apparently, our settings on YouTube are messed up. So you guys go ahead. I'm trying to fix this.
Yeah, whatever's over on the left side of the screen is very small, and everything on the right is big. Anyway, here's the thing: the hot stove is cooking along, getting ready for the big winter meetings. Everybody's stoking up the hot stove, and Mr. Harris poured some ice all over it today.
So, yeah, he did.
That's interesting. Is he trying to limit expectations? Is he just trying to lay a trap and lay low until he can jump on something? Who knows? I mean, probably it's going to be what we talked about a couple of weeks ago. They're going to rely on a lot of their young players to take another step ahead. They were within one hit of the ALCS last year. So I don't think he feels the need that the fan base does to make a big move to spring into next year. And it, everything he said today kind of plays into that. And that's okay. I mean, it's a viable strategy. I mean, they went places last year. The offense died for the last 30 days, but otherwise, they were right where you'd want them to be on September 1st. So I think the big thing that I have struggles with is that it almost seems to me like they plead that they can't afford to play in the big game for players they really need. It's a choice. It's not a sentence. They are not sentenced to not spending. They are making a choice. Illich's can afford it. So that part is a little disappointing. They can sell it as wanting their young players to move ahead. I get that, and it's a plausible idea, but it's also a choice. If they put out word under back channels and rumors that they just can't afford to go places, I find that to be a lie, really.
Yeah. I mean, at least we know, based on last year, that they were willing, or at least it was conceivable that they could spend 175, maybe even 180 million. They were that close to signing Bregman. Yeah. And, after signing Drew Anderson, I think Roster Resource has them at 148 million. So, okay, they're not sitting there with like 50 million that they could easily just go commit to a bunch of players. But yeah, I mean, they're not stuck. I mean, if the idea is that they don't want to stall their young players, okay, well, Kevin McGonigal's not Jace Young, but they said the same thing, prior to that, like, oh, well, we don't want to block, Jace Young. We don't want to block, they don't want to block anybody. And, so it's just frustrating. And I mean, you can look at the team two ways. You can look at it as, okay, this is basically a 500 team the last 2 years that has Tarek Skubal on top of that and AJ Hinch managing the team. And that's how they've gotten to 87 wins. Or you can look at what they did last year and say, okay, they're more like maybe like an 87 to 90 win team that just fell apart down the stretch. And Riley Green presumably will get it back. You could see it either way, but one thing is clear is that they're not, really on the level where anyone's going to favor them to get to the World Series next year like this. I mean, if they go get Ha-Sung Kim and and Kyle Finnegan back, which is kind of like what Scott Harris's comments sort of trend toward you expecting at this point. I mean, maybe you can squeak it out, but things went really well the first half of last year too. Better than, the roster would lead you to believe. And, eventually it all kind of crumbled and they were short an exactly Alex Bregman type of bat in the postseason. They did outpitch the Guardians, and they hung right toe to toe with the Mariners, who I think on paper everybody thought should just trounce them. But to me, that's that's more a function of having Tarek Skubal, having a really good manager, having Chris Fetter, game planning for you. They still have all those things, but yeah, I mean, it's just a tough look to have Tarek Skubal for 3 years and to really not make any kind of a major push. And they'll have to live with the consequences from the fan base. I don't blame people for being frustrated with them. I think some people might be a little over the top with it, but there's, we were conditioned, by Dave Dabrowski and Mike Ilitch, and we don't have either one of them anymore, so we'll see how it goes. But, is Kevin McGonigal ready to ride to the rescue and hit 25 bombs and play the whole season? I don't know. I think he's going to be fine, but I don't know that he's going to be ready to, lead the way or be a major factor right out of the gate. So we'll just have to see.
I look at it. This is the way I look at it. I think that you're going to have Kevin McGonigal be a centerpiece of everything. However, what they have to still figure out is the rest of it. What do they have with Max Clark and everything? And I think that the kid, I mean, he basically said the kids are going to play. That's what he basically was saying. And what's going to happen, what I think is also going to happen here is they're going to start getting those minor league free agents signed and out of the way. And the reason why they wanted to bring bullpen arms in is relatively simple. They want to have 6 or 7 to 8 guys that can throw and basically have openers, essentially. That's what they want to do because it gives them a flexibility to either put them back in the bullpen or not. Mm-hmm. Is it a strategy that's going to be revolutionary? Probably not. But I mean, I look at a trade, like I look at them, if a trade like going to get CJ Abrams from the Nationals, fielding wise, shortstop, he's not going to be a long-term shortstop. However, put him some speed, put him in center field. If you want to move Parker Meadows or what have you into another part of the outfield, great. And then it gives you save and preserve Riley Green. That being said, Harris is listening. Harris knows what he's trying to do out there with all that. I mean, he knows the Gleyber Torres thing is not exactly the most sexiest thing they're coming back with. Mm-hmm. But here's the thing. He is going to ask if he's going to ask for Terrace School, he's going to ask for certain guys. And if he's not going to get it, he's not going to do it. I think he wants to compromise with it. And I know there was like talk about DePaula and everything, but DePaula strikes out way too much. I've seen him at Great Lakes, good power kid, but he's still, I'm sorry. The double A, when you get to Tulsa, in Double A Tulsa, the Southern League, it's Texas League. I'm sorry, the Texas League numbers are always conceiving. Those numbers are very deceiving because like the ballpark plays a factor down there. I think I forgot the Tulsa among the ballpark factors. Same thing with Oklahoma City and AAA. The Dodgers have a great system, but they also have the ability because they play in the PSL and the Texas League. Some of it plays into it a little bit. Sorry, it does. To me, it does. Because if you watch enough of the minor league system, you realize like those ballparks play a big difference in the heat, the altitude, everything. So I look, the Dodgers are the only team that can really afford him. I don't see the Mets going after him either. But
and the thing is, if you want to deal with the Dodgers and they're willing to trade you DePaula for 1 year of a, hopefully 5 to 6 WAR pitcher is what they're going to be expecting. They're not valuing DePaula that highly either, if he was the next superstar, they wouldn't be trading him because they don't need to win a World Series. They've got 2 under their belt. They're in good shape to go win another one, and they're probably in on Kyle Tucker as well. I don't expect them to trade Tarik Skubal, but mostly because I just don't think anyone's going to overpay to such a crazy extent that it's worth doing. But where Tarik Skubal becomes the linchpin to the whole thing is that, okay, then you look ahead to 2027. Yeah, okay, you've got McGonigal, you'll have Clark. Hopefully they work out reasonably well. I think McGonigal certainly, is going to be a well above average hitter at least, and then we'll see what else we get from the rest of them. But where's your rotation going to come from? You're not going to pull out another Tarik Skubal. You have Troy Melton, you have Reese Olson, and you have Jackson Jobe coming back from Tommy John surgery after not really being very effective.
But not till September, Brandon.
Right. But that's what I'm saying. 2027. That's your starting 3. Apparently, that's a long way down from where they are right now. So again, like when people say, "Hey, why don't you push in, for 1 year while you still have him?" I mean, it makes sense to me. It made sense to me last year. So yeah, there we are. Are they going to do enough to like convince anyone that they're going to win a World Series? Because if they're not, then you do really have to think about trading Tarik Skubal, and maybe you won't get as much as you want, but there's not a whole lot of point like just running this back in my view, like almost the exact same team. I mean, that's probably what they're going to do, but I'm not going to be real enthusiastic about it.
Well, like you just said it, like you think that they're going to run it back because I think the organization, I've been kind of saying this for a little while now. I just think the organization is comfortable with this level of success right now. I think
that's a good point.
I don't think they're chasing a World Series. I think they're like, hey, we've got a great farm system. You see it. It's number 1 some places, number 2. Like they're pointing to that as an accolade, and they're like, hey, we won a playoff series the last 2 years. Mm-hmm. I feel like that moderate level of success, which is winning a playoff series isn't nothing, is enough for them to be like we're achieving something. And I just almost don't think, until I see them make a significant move towards a World Series, I fail to see how they're interested in one. Like, they haven't shown me interest in one, really. Not since he's been here. I'm not saying he hasn't done good things. It's just show me an interest in the big league club and, adding real talent. It just seems like if it's not with our guys, it means something different to him or something. I don't know. That's speculation.
Well, I think it's also it's a cost effective thing to go within, and that's fine.
Yeah.
I don't mind that at all, because for somebody who has watched this farm system all part of their life pretty much be a giant wasteland. I mean, except for a few years, honestly, the farm system has not been good at all. And here we are. There's a Baseball America top 10 for the first time in probably a decade or so. There's no pitchers on there. That is concerning to me. That's the other thing about this you have to consider. You have the reason why you want to run out with Skubal is unless the Dodgers give you 3 or 4 guys back that are pitchers, there's no point in training them, because look at the system right now, top to bottom, outside of AA to AA. Chris and I were talking about this the other day. We have literally no idea what that rotation is going to look like in Erie. Honestly, Erie's rotation is going to look like Toledo. Like, you don't know. And even in West Michigan right now, those guys, like, they're majority of the draft picks in 2024, 2025. I'm sorry, the 2024, 2023 class is all banged up right now. You don't know what you have right now pitching wise. That to me is alarming to me, because guys like Rainer Castillo, and Brandon, we've talked about this too. Rainer Castillo took a step back last year. You're seeing Gabriel, like, you're seeing these weird bullpen starts because that's what they have. They're using what they have because they don't have anything else, quite frankly.
Yeah, well, and they don't have anything else that necessarily, makes you think that, that Drew Anderson is. I mean, you look at that AAA rotation, right? Okay, maybe they move Kiter to the bullpen, but if they don't, okay, you burn Kiter's last option. He's at Toledo. Maybe Ty Madden comes back. Who knows? I don't expect anything there. Sawyer Gibson-Long is there. Maybe Jake Miller, if he's healthy, gets up there. You've got those 3 guys, but is Drew Anderson gonna necessarily be better than those 3 guys? I mean, his numbers were great, but I mean, the KBO is sort of like, AAA level, maybe a little less. So, and you're locking yourself into that guy now. So yeah, I mean, if you go below that, I mean, it's just a crapshoot all the way down. And the thing I pointed out in that article today too is that the farm system is good, but the odds that you're going to produce Tarek Skubal, Riley Green, Kerry Carpenter, and Casey Mize all in 2, which Alavila did in 2 years. Of course, he had a first overall pick in there. That's just hard to do. Like the idea that, McGonigal, Briseño, and Clark, and maybe even Rainier are going to work out to such a degree that they do better than that group. I mean, that's just not, super realistic. It's definitely not impossible. I love the prospects, but you've got those 4 guys, and below that, you've got a lot of guys who are like 19 and 20 who've been injured, so far, and we've barely seen. So, I mean, the farm system is good, and that's a good thing, but it's a long way from like looking at it like, oh, it's going to carry us, to the mountaintop here, because, we're already at a point where in 2 years, you're going to start having to decide what you're doing with Riley Green. Kerry Carpenter is going to be 30 before we know it. Colt Keith hasn't really established himself and hasn't really had a chance to even find a position. So yeah, I mean, it's just hard to look beyond this year and see how things could go better. Like that the best days are still way ahead of us. Maybe that's true, but it sure doesn't look like it right now. And that's why, to the majority of the fan base, this looks like the end of the line, like the last chance at the run before we kind of have to restart things a little bit. Not a rebuild, but certainly like some kind of retooling of an entire pitching staff to get back to just being where they are right now.
It's just such an interesting mix of factors that we have to consider with this team that we just haven't seen with the franchise for maybe forever, because they're coming off 2 playoff appearances. They have this one fabulous gem of a star, but only for a year. What do you do with him? You have this farm system that looks like it has all kinds of jewels perking up that you're going to mix in. And you have some young players who've been good at times, not so good at other times. And we have a front office who I think are in is this their 3rd off season with the Tigers now?
Oh, this is number 4 now.
This is number 4. Okay. But they spent the first 2 building up the lower parts of the system. and not necessarily adding to the big league club. And then he caught fire in September of 24, right?
Yeah.
It's so hard to look and say, yeah, this is exactly what they have to do, because they have so many options to choose from, and nobody feels confident they're going to choose any of them. I don't know anybody who's confident that they will keep Scooble for a year and add the pieces to contend this year. Does anybody feel confident in that? I don't feel confident in that. I also don't feel confident that they'll trade him and also bring in, they could still then target his money and pull in free agents like Bregman and Robert Suarez and, contend that way. I don't think anybody thinks they're going to do that. I think at the end of the day, you always just look for the simplest solution, right? Occam's razor is an overused term, but the simplest solution is the one. I think they're going to do very little, and people are going to hate it. But I just think that, it's okay to use Tarek Skubal, use him up this year. They got you within one at bat of the ALCS last season, and you let him walk at the end. People say, well, you only get a draft pick. Yeah, but you also get one more year of his prime. Okay. That's something people always kind of leave that part out. They forget that. He may go nuts and post another 7-war year, 8-war year, whatever, and pull them deep into the playoffs. And if that's the thing that happens, that's not the end of the world, but it's probably just not the sexiest thing that people are hoping for.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it is just sort of like letting it happen to them. And I think, just that sense alone frustrates people. Gleyber Torres decided to come back to the Tigers. Jack Flaherty decided to come back to the Tigers. The Tigers didn't necessarily make those decisions. And they may not make very many decisions this offseason that don't involve the waiver wire and minor league free agents. And that's a part of it too, when, the impression of passivity that's been around the last couple of years is so strong. There's not a whole lot to suggest that that's going to change. So,
yeah, I mean, the one thing that Boris said no to, so the one thing that Steve was saying that CC was willing to stay, but Boris said no. CC Sabathia's a grown man; he can make his own decisions. I mean, CC probably wanted more money too. I mean, to sit there and say that Scott, like, look, if Scott Boris is a powerful man, I understand that, but if a player wants to do something, the player's going to do whatever they want. It's free choice. He's not a dictator. So if he wants to sign back here and he wants to be a team-friendly deal, then they would make it happen, I would think. But I don't know. We don't know. I mean, I know he's tired of. I know Scubal's tired of hearing about it. I see it in his face in every interview. It's like every single 5 damn seconds, and I'm sick of hearing about it too.
And he's trying to do all the right things. And that dude tried to get him to sign the Yankees hat. He's like, no, I won't do it. I want to stay here. I want Eminem and Jack White to play in Comerica on opening day. He's trying his best to like manage this and not put himself in that kind of situation where people are speculating about what he wants. He's a Tiger. He's trying to lead the team. I think they do have a good culture at least built up at this point where people do like being there. They want to play for the team. If you're not getting a giant contract from the Dodgers or somebody, I mean, Detroit's about as good a place to play as there is. The facilities are super comfortable. They got a new jet. People like AJ, people like Federer. There's not too much of a demanding media that's like hounding you. You have to put up with Jeff Rieger occasionally, but we love Riegs. So, you just go on with it. But I mean, the circumstances are good for players to want to be here, but the Tigers have to want to pay them. So yeah, just no sign that is going to happen. And until, like we've all said, until you see a move, a really big move, like, oh, they traded for Kettle Marte or they signed Alex Bregman or they did something, they're just not really making much of a mark. And, that was another thrust of my article, is just that, like, I mean, if Scott Harris got fired tomorrow, apart from the farm system, like they've left like no tangible long-term mark as a front office in 3 off seasons now, which is just weird. I'm not saying that it's necessarily like a huge mistake. They haven't made big mistakes because they haven't tried anything that could have turned into a big mistake, but they made a lot of small mistakes. And you have to decide if that's what you want to live with, because trying to find those $10 million, $7 million players that break out and do way better than you
off the Frickers building
is super hard. It's not like they're going to be able to do it all the time, but we did hope that they would, be sharp enough to pull it out more often than they have so far.
Or a clever,
You know,
or a clever trade here and there. I mean, by the way, thank
Yeah.
you, Sean, for $5.
Exquisite.
I mean, even Avila with the Willie Castro trade that was smart trade. Al Avila was creative with some trades. Not saying all his trades worked out. And
he did kill a couple trades late, for
he did.
sure. And Harris has his, like, okay, Finnegan was probably the smartest, savviest, trade for a reliever at the deadline in terms of cost. No one, I don't think, was even really looking at him that hard, and they plucked him. They found Jahmai Jones. That was a smart signing in the offseason that paid a lot of dividends. They have those couple smart moves every year that they can kind of hang their hat on. But then there's also, $50 million in pitching down the drain. The year before that, it was Shelby Miller, and that was when they signed Kenta Maeda, and those didn't work out. So there isn't really any sense that you can, like, depend on them to pull out a gem once in a while. I mean, even the Royals in this time have, like, made a couple big trades the past couple of years. I mean, they found Cole Reagans, know.
So the Royals have gotten bold. And the question here, that was a real quick question: what happens with top tier free agents? Pitchers' value if they have a season injury right before they become a free agent, their value goes significantly down, and they're not going to get that big payday.
And they're probably going to take a pillow deal for the next year so that they can, hopefully prove themselves again and get back at it. Yeah.
Yeah. Word Van Gogh says here, the Tigers have made up their minds to do a little possible. They are investing in all out. Reporters are investing more effort than the Tigers brass. You know what? Look, the bottom line is, even my wife's cancer surgery was 2 weeks ago. I've done an article every day since. And as much as, like, sometimes, like, it's how much I have going on, I'm exhausted half the time. Yeah, I looked at Tigers transaction wire. They ain't doing nothing. But that's not even a humble brag or anything. It's just, it is, one of the things that you would expect by now, but it hasn't happened yet. Even across baseball, it's not just the Tigers. Nobody's done anything. I mean, the Nationals the Nationals made a trade. They traded for Harry Ford Harry Ford from Seattle as a catching prospect, and the Pirates and Red Sox made a trade. That's really about it in the last week or so. You look at the Tigers transaction outside of Drew Anderson, there's not even been waiver wire pickups. There's been nothing. Like, so it's really bizarre how quiet it is. And I think there is something to be said about this pending deadlock or this lockout, and possibly the cap is coming. I think it is. I mean, you also have, you know what? Here's why, Brandon. When you have the Yankees owner, George Steinbrenner, Hal Steinbrenner going out there saying the Yankees didn't make enough profit. First of all, shut the fuck up. Like, seriously, like, don't really, like, you're gonna sit there and cry wolf about something. Yankees are one of those top value teams out there, and you're gonna sit there and say you didn't make a profit. Come on, really? Are we that stupid?
All right. We all know there's creative accounting that can be done to make it look that way if they wanted to, but we're never even going to see those books, so they can just lie, Yeah. I mean, it's a giant media empire. It's not just a baseball team. So they can stuff that.
Yeah, no, and Mr. Act Like It, I think there is something to that. I think there's something they're trying to.
I do think that there is going to be a cap and floor eventually. I'm just skeptical that they're going to get this done, like, in the next year. And maybe I'll feel differently after we hear all these perspectives over the next 365 days. But I mean, that's a super complicated thing to put together. And, on the one side, you got the Yankees, like, we can't afford players anymore. We need like, if they need a salary cap, like, you got to be kidding me. But the Dodgers probably don't feel that way. The Dodgers are like, this is great. All these punk teams are, not even in on most of these players. We can just keep this dynasty going for as long as we want. And they've got to get all the owners on board and in line, not just, like, with the general idea of a plan, but, like, with the freaking details. And then you've got to find some way to, like, force this through the union next year. And the union's going to have a lot of problems with it too. They'll be more open to it if there's a strong floor, certainly. But I mean, it's a complicated proposition. So I'm not counting our chickens on that in any respect yet. Long term, I think it eventually has to happen. Something along those lines has to happen.
Yeah, I think, and you look, this is not the first time in baseball history this has happened. If you recall, back in the 60s, the Yankees used to use the KC Athletics as a farm system all the time. And now you're seeing that now to a certain extent with the Yankees and Pirates in the last 10, 15 years. There's certain teams that seem to be likely trade partners. Look at the Pirates. The whole thing that earlier in the offseason they're saying, oh, the Pirates and the Marlins are going to spend money. My ass, they're going to spend money. The day they spend money, look, it's all posture because the reason why is they're trying to say they are is so they don't get in trouble. The Marlins got in trouble last year for not spending enough money, and the Pirates. And the fact that they're trying to go in at Kyle Schwarber, it reminds me eerily similar of when the Tigers were trying to re-sign Juan Gonzalez and trying to, they're out there in the paper all the time, even with the Budge stuff, or like it just has that same eerie.
We're trying so hard to make it happen,
yeah,
and
we're trying to make it happen. Yeah, and it's bullshit. It's all bullshit to me. To me, I'm sorry if the swearing or not, but it's that's not the posturing aside. That the rest of baseball right now is pissing me off because of this. Because it's like the Pirates are not going to. You really think the Pirates are going to go and get a big name? No, not at all. Bear Hudson, thank you for the $10, much appreciated. Hold on, let me give you a. You know what? I'm gonna give you a.
Off the Frickers building.
Let me give you that. That's one. Yeah.
I tweeted about it earlier when this was happening with the Pirates and Schwarber. Tom Verducci's on TV saying, "Oh, the Pirates, they're never going to get him, but it's really great that they're trying." And I was just thinking, BS, it's great. There are no silver medals and bronze medals for being in on these players. Well, we were in on them. We gave them our best shot. BS. Come on. Anybody can finish second. We could make an offer of them to join the podcast and finish second. I mean, it's just.
That's what I feel about the Bregman stuff. Like, until you sign Bregman, I don't want to hear anything about, we tried. I don't give a shit. He didn't sign, so the money didn't get spent, and you didn't do anything with it. So I agree you. That's exactly how. Same exact thing.
And Colin, our esteemed writer here, the rich teams avoiding luxury tax, and the cheap teams are getting grievances filed against them every year by the MLPA. Amen to that. I also like here's what Bear Hudson said for the $10 tip. Until Tiger fans demand more of this owner and the GM keeps hiding behind cheap moves and calling it a plan, they'll keep cutting corners, build discount rosters, and expect fans to buy the lie. I think there's some elements of truth to that, but I also think that they're going to try to build their farm system for the first time in a long time. By the way, Tigers fan 63 says, Raj, the correct term is fucking bullshit.
Fucking bullshit, man.
Fucking bullshit, man. Yes.
Right, man. But the previous guy there is right. And he doesn't get brought up enough. It all gets dumped on Harris a lot. But this is Chris Ilitch's team. Okay. And he is, if you're worried about what they're spending, what they're not spending, go to the top. Because he can change the course of the franchise if he wants to. He's signing off. If you don't like what's going on, he's signing off on it all right now. And that's kind of how that rolls. Yeah. So I don't know. It'd be really interesting to know. We will never know the answer to this question. Were they hoping that Gleyber Torres would actually turn down that qualifying offer? And what would they have done with the $22 million, if anything? Instead, now they have him on the books for $22 million, which is okay by me. I was in favor of offering him the qualifying offer. I was just hoping they would pocket the draft pick, but
same here. Yeah, same here. But it was worth the risk because having Gleyber Torres on the team is fine. You need a right-handed bat somewhere that is a professional and and can kind of grind it out. Finding out that he had a hernia down the stretch makes it feel a little bit better. Like, all right, he didn't just like collapse. The first couple months weren't a fluke and all that sort of thing. But yeah, I mean, it all, like we've all said, it just comes back to until you do something, no one believes you're going to do anything. And
if they had that $22 million now laying around, is that where they would go after a Robert Suarez or whoever, the guy you want, whatever guy you want? Would that have been the move?
Well, and and the thing about okay, we're going to build in all this depth. That's where we're going to spend our money. Well, it hasn't worked. They would have been better off just signing like a star and just throwing money around. Because they ended up basically dumping, $65-70 million into pitchers the last 2 years who did nothing for him because it's hard to do that. It's hard. There's a reason players are cheap. It's because they're not good. If everybody could make that work for themselves every year, then they would certainly do so. But I mean, you also look around the franchise, and this is why it's also hard for them to cry poor, is because you're building the luxury section. You put all the bells and whistles in there. Ticket prices haven't gone up a crazy amount, but they just keep creeping up, to pay for all this. And another thing is that I've started to question like how much money the franchise is actually invested in like medical personnel, the biomechanics department. Where is the beef from all of that? I've made the argument plenty of times defending them that like, look, you have to realize that they're spending probably 30 to 40 million dollars off the field that they weren't spending when Mike Ilitch owned the team, but I don't necessarily see much benefit from it because the injuries are just piling up left and right.
Yeah.
It's not like we're turning out 100-mile-per-hour flamethrowers all over the place all of a sudden. I mean, you have to kind of question like all their investments, beyond, just what they get in terms of players. And I don't know. All in all, I'm getting a bit disillusioned. This is what it's coming down to.
I mean, there's guys losing velocity. I mean, there's guys that are going down 3 or 4 miles per hour when they first got drafted. I mean, Jaden Ham was down to 88, 89 after he got back from injury. That's concerning.
Carlos Marcano and Jake Miller were throwing harder.
Yeah. No, and the thing is,
not a lot. So.
But you can argue, look, there's a lot to be said about the position side of things. That's improved dramatically. It's the best, the position in terms of position players. The Tigers have had the best. This is the best development I've seen probably in 30 plus years. This is, I mean, no doubt.
Oh, forever. I mean, let's not even, I mean, if we go back to Tram and Lou, like there was no, development was a different thing back then. It was go play a lot of baseball, kids.
Yeah, no, that was also, and that's really like you really had to have really scouting eye to see if a guy was going to pay off or not. Not to say you don't need a scouting eye now, but my point is there wasn't the metrics and all that stuff to tell you a little bit more about the player. But anyway, it's been since the 70s, since in terms of like actually producing major league talent, because this is a team right now that if you look at positional player wise, it's been drafted eternally. Dingler won a Gold Glove. There's a lot of things you can hang on. Look, I'm not trying to holy crap the Tigers' efforts here. The Tigers have done a really good job of developing players, but what you have to be concerned with is something they were really good at or decent before in pitching. Now all of a sudden they're pedaling backwards. It's either they don't have any answers for it. So as of right now, and so you have to really, I thought that might be some more changes on the minor league side, of the coaching side, or we haven't really heard much about that. That's been really ultra quiet.
Right. And there is a long way to go. That's the other problem is that, it's the first full day of the winter meetings. Usually not much happens by now anyway. So I'm not trying to lose my mind already. It's pretty early on, but yeah, I mean, it just goes back to like we just keep saying it, until they do something big, no one is going to believe that they're ever going to do anything big. And that leaves us kind of running it back next year and hoping, things just go better. And maybe they will. I mean, I'm not, complaining about being in the playoffs every year after the nightmare of the decade before that. But, once you get, the abyss. But once you get to this point, it's pretty hard to just watch them sort of like, maybe it'll all come together for us. It might, but
here's what he said: no untouchables on the roster. Can't do my job without listening. So whatever that case is, I'm sure he's probably getting some offers right now. And there's nothing that gain momentum. But there was one cool thing I did hear today that I did like. That is really cool. Is the Dominican Republic national team is going to host Tigers in Santo Domingo. Santo Domingo for the 2026 for a couple games for the World Baseball Classic. So kind of give them a preview a little bit. So I thought that was cool because Tigers really don't do a lot of international things like that. So it's actually the second time in 6 years, but still.
Yeah, but it is cool.
Yeah, it's cool.
Raising money for the victims of the fire.
Yeah, that nightclub fire. So that's cool too. Yeah.
So that is really, really cool.
And spring training, every player I've ever talked to, and I haven't talked to anywhere near as many as you have, but they all say spring training gets pretty boring. So it can't hurt to like go on a trip to the Dominican Republic, play some ball there, watch the WBC, and then come back and everybody ramps it up for a week or two, and then we go. So yeah, I mean, all in all, and I love the WBC, so I'm looking forward to that one way or the other.
Absolutely.
Yeah. No, and there was unfortunately one of the people who died in that fire was former Tiger Octavio Dotel, who passed away. He played. The Tigers were his last stop too, by the way. So he was. Yeah,
he had played for what 13 teams. Like it was always like the image of his.
It was amazing.
Was it? Yeah, his suitcase with all the different team stickers that he played for on it. Yeah.
So And it also is
Too
cool
good.
because they'll be playing against Panama on March 4th. So I'm hoping that if we raise enough money, of course, that we can go down there in spring training and be down there for that, because that'd be cool. Because
Can we write that off?
yeah, I can write it off. Let's just get donations
Hmm.
going again. We gotta that'll be starting up in the next couple of weeks or so. I'd love to get some going down there because I think I have the time aside to do it, and this year will be ideal to go down there. And it's funny because I didn't get invited to the end of the press season conference, but it was a total accident. The Tigers were really cool about everything what happened, but I love spring training. That was like just going down there was an awesome experience. And anybody that gets the chance to cover and talk to this team, do yourself a favor. Go spring training for a few days. It's really nice. So, we too got to hang out with Jose Lima. That is
nice.
awesome. Oh, awesome. And then Jose Mesa stayed at our bar. You know, Jose Mesa is also a former Tiger for like 30 seconds.
Yeah, briefly.
So the Rule 5 draft is coming up Wednesday. I wanted to hit that up a little bit because there might be a couple Tigers that will probably be more likely picked. So there's a good chance that RJ Pettit, who we're fans of, will get moved or get drafted. There's also a good chance that Troy Watson is eligible for the draft. And also, how does here's the thing I want to ask you, Brandon, or anybody else. How does Thomas Nito get on the Rule 5 list? Is that an accident or what? How'd that all work?
That is weird because he should be well beyond. I thought at least. Yeah, I thought by now he'd have enough status that he couldn't be picked, but maybe not. Is he on here? I've got Baseball America's whole thing up here.
He's on that list, and that was
he?
Yeah,
yeah, that's pretty odd. That surprises me a little bit.
Yeah.
Huh. And obviously, yeah, I mean, I like RJ Pettit. You know, I know, he's not going to be a closer. He's not, going to probably be like a dominant setup guy. But pretty good arm for a team that needs arms. Keeps the ball in the park. The fact that everyone wants him, doesn't make me feel great about the fact that he's going to be leaving. But we'll see. He might end up coming back to us. But Liam Hicks didn't last year. That was another funny thing from my article today that people got mad about because I kind of pointed out that whole, they should have just kept Kelly. I mean, they traded Carson Kelly for Liam Hicks, and then they just let him go in the Rule 5 draft. He puts up one WAR for the Marlins. Like, well, the whole thing was a botch job, and some people didn't like that very much either. Yeah. I just think I kind of feel like Jake Rogers' time is done. Like, I love Jake Rogers. I know he has like a place in the clubhouse, and he's a leader and he's good behind the plate, but we don't know if those skills are going to matter as much with the challenge system coming. He hasn't hit really in 2 years. Kind of feels like it's at the end of the line. So I don't know. So it wasn't exactly hindsight. When they traded Kelly, I was kind of half in my mind thinking like, ugh, I would have rather traded Jake. But they would have had to sign Carson. So it's all
Bradley does bring a good point. I mean, there is a lot of complaining among fans that are not happy with the current situation. For me, I look, if the Tigers do something great and they can continue to be competitive, that's fine by me. I really don't want it to go back to 2020, 21 where it was literally bare bones,
right?
4A guys. So
yeah, I just think we can split the difference.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't need to go trade McGonigal and Clark, and nobody's asking for that either. We just like a little more oomph in the effort department here. They haven't spent very much money in a long time. Chris Ilitch has said over and over again, when we're close, we're gonna, we'll be there. We'll be spending a competitive amount. Well, they haven't done it. There've been a lot of promises made over the last 10 years, and they've kind of fulfilled some of it by getting to this point where it's like, okay, the team is fun to watch. They're competitive. But then nobody feels great about the fact you just can't feel great about the fact that they're not trying that hard to go any further. They're just kind of going to roll the dice and see if it works out. And then we're going to look at a scuba-less Tigers in 2027. And, that there's going to be a real uphill climb to figure out how to do that without, throwing $30-40 million around at starting pitchers, which is not anyone's favorite investment. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't even like looking past this year for that reason, because I'm not feeling great about it. I'm just not, And we both know, like, there's a lot of good arms on the farm that, we're not talking about because they were injured this year, but these guys are very young. Even in the most optimistic scenario, it's just hard to see where they're going to come up with a couple, good starting pitchers by 28 even, really.
29, yeah.
Yeah.
What were you gonna say, Mike?
I lost it. I don't know.
Oh,
We've broken him.
So
No.
Drew Anderson, obviously really good agent who was secured $7 million today, and probably more than most people were going to guess. Raj, I take it you've seen him pitch in Toledo.
very little. I mean, he did. He almost got a job out of spring training. I remember, but
He
the
was
problem
kind
was
of close. Yeah.
Yeah, but the problem was command. His command was a little bit. He had a high pitch count and wasn't really commanding what he was there. So maybe he honed his command in Korea. That's a positive, but I look at it like I think he is a guy that's going to be an opener tops. He got, as far as like his better command than Matt Manning does, Colin. That's for sure. I mean, he got sent down with Matt Manning that year, and then Korea was like, "Here's more money," and he left. So that
It's a
being
pretty
said,
good fastball. I mean, it's not like he's got nothing. I mean, he throws 94, 96. It's got some ride. It's got a solid cutter, decent slider, decent curveball, fairly good looking changeup. That was kind of like from recall for when he was in AAA, but also like
changeup's got some fade. Changeup's got some decent fade on it. That's for sure.
Yeah, and I mean, who was it? Lance Brodkowski, who had some data from the KBO on him. It doesn't look like anything's radically changed, but he always had like a solid pitch mix and just couldn't command it. And he commanded it last year, and we'll see if he can command it again. But I mean, you brought up Troy Watson. Troy Watson has good stuff too. Hasn't been able to put it all together either, and that's kind of how it goes with that level of depth starter type. So yeah, whether it's a good idea to commit $7 million to one where you can't cut him, you can't option him, you just have to let him go if it's bad, and we know how that goes. They'll try everything until they have to do that. So you don't love it. Scott today mentioned something about like needing optionable pitching talent, needing that flexibility, and I would certainly agree, but that's just hard to come by. No one wants to trade pitching this time of year. It's just really hard. You can't like trade like Colt Keith for somebody's like back of the top 100 list, starting pitching prospect who's in AA. Like, it's just hard to come by that right now. So I'm sure they'll do the usual rigmarole and be scouring the waiver wire and, try some minor league guys and see if they can piece something together. And, maybe this time that will, be more effective. But yeah, I mean, it's, I'd be surprised if it was a more effective pitching staff than it was last year. I mean, it just doesn't really seem like it's in the cards,
I guess they just got to hope that Anderson, I mean, everybody's different, right? But they got to hope he follows the Eric Fedde route. Going to Korea, working on something, implementing whatever they teach over there, and coming back and really being solid for a year. Because he was great, and then he kind of fell back a bit the second year. If that worked out for the Tigers, that would be a great investment of $7 million. If he's going to be an opener, can he get through an order one time and do that fairly frequently? If he can, more power to him. And that I did take a little exception to some people. A lot of, and it's Twitter, so you can't worry about it too much. But really complaining about the Tigers signing him, like that was a bad thing. I just think I think that's going to be the marquee move of the winter. Now, if it does end up being the marquee move of the winter, then we do have something to talk about. But otherwise, it's just a depth signing that every team kind of dabbles in. To me, when you have a guy who went to the KBO and was that successful, and you want to throw a few $1,000,000 his way to bring him into the system, works for me.
Yeah. I mean, if we want to make a comparison, like, the Blue Jays gave $30 million in 3 years to Cody Ponce, and, Cody Ponce was slightly better than Anderson in the KBO last year, but, it was a pretty negligible difference. So, I mean, the price, for that kind of that level of pitcher is probably just fine.
But $1.5 million WAR next year, you paid for it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and he's been healthy. He threw a full slate of innings last year. So yeah, I mean, we can be smart asses, and it'll, at least he'll do more for us than Alex Cobb did. But but it also plays into something that Raj and I have been talking about. Maybe you guys have been talking about it all. It's just that the Tigers seem to want to scheme a way to not have like a dedicated starting rotation beyond like maybe 3 guys. I don't know if that's fascination with the way the pitching chaos year worked, or stretch worked, or what it is, or if it's just, there's too many injuries. Committing a ton of money to pitching is dangerous, which is again what scares me about like the next few years. And I mean, so if you have yourself like a whole bunch of multi-inning relievers, in place of a fifth or sixth starter, like that seems to be something they want to try. Whether it'll work out, I don't know, but I don't have like terrible concerns about the Tigers pitching either. Like it would be really nice to have like one more killer reliever. But like even last year, like signing Morton and Paddock didn't work out. But if they had just kind of pitched Montero and and just kind of done whatever, it would have been just as good. And they still got where they got. So, when you get to the postseason, it all comes down to like your six best arms anyway. So in the long run, it's just about like being good enough to let your offense win you games. And so hopefully the offense will come through and be a little more consistent this year. But is Zach McKinstry going to have a career first half? Is Javi Baez going to hit?
Is Cole Keith going to be what he's supposed to be? I mean,
is he going to get a chance to play? Yeah. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
No, but even like in terms of like just even pitching wise too, like you have Sawyer Gibson Long, which you don't really know what you have with him, but there's again, I'm still concerned because I just haven't seen them even by now. They're usually scurrying the waiver wire. Usually you'll see them like sign 5 or 6 guys, and maybe they will the next couple of weeks or so. But by now there's some sort of level of activity. Like for example, I wouldn't mind them like a guy who would have fit that multi-reliever prospect or that reliever role is Javier Rodriguez, who ended up going back to Toronto's minor league. He got outrighted and then no one picked him up. I thought the Tigers would take there's a couple guys out there. Yeah, but they didn't. So that's the thing. It's been really, really quiet. And that's, I know that Harris mentioned that he's going to start going through the waiver wire and everything. Maybe they have some guys in mind. Thank you, We2, for the $5.
Exquisite.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thank you for that. But I think the way to kind of this week is going to happen is all right. We'll make our predictions and we'll get out of here. So this is what my prediction is going to be.
Okay.
I'm going to predict that the Tigers are going to sign 2 players to minor league deals that were former major leaguers. Okay, so they'll do that. I think that the second thing is going to happen is and this is more of like a wild card. Maybe they'll pick somebody in the Rule 5 draft.
They'd have to aren't they full though right now? So they'd have to cut somebody.
They would have to cut somebody, but maybe they decide
they could.
Yeah, they could do that. They might shock somebody. Wait, I thought the roster was at 39, or is it at 40?
I thought Anderson brought it to 40. I think Anderson brought it to 40.
Okay, all right.
But I mean, I think you can still just cut someone and then just swap them out.
Yeah.
We haven't been in that situation in a while. I don't even know if they'll pick somebody. I mean, I kind of expect that they just won't because they didn't last year. But
we'll see. But maybe they'll surprise everybody because there's a lot of good pitchers in that Rule 5 draft. And then the third thing I think is going to happen is they're either going to bring back Kyle Finnegan or they're going to sign a closer. They're going to sign at least one major league arm. One. No trades are going to happen. I think that's just going to be that's it. It's just going to be 2 minor league signings, a major league signing, and a shot. You know what? It'll be something like if maybe they have to go somebody in the Rule 5 draft. That's it.
Yeah, I think. I mean, I'd pretty much 100% agree with that. And then we'll just wait. Over the next 3 months while the Tigers are rumored to be one of the teams talking about various players that they probably won't get. There is the question of shortstop though, and that is why like Ha-Seong Kim does keep coming up for people as like someone that maybe they need to get. They're going to keep Trey Sweeney, but Trey Sweeney needs like a full swing overhaul and isn't a particularly good defensive shortstop. Javi Baez is, 32. We don't know if he's going to hit. He can play shortstop. And Zach McKinstry is okay there. Like he's not bad. And I think Trey Cruz is like okay there. But, there's not a lot of inspiring options there. Like if they end up having to use Javier Baez in center field, then shortstop is going to be kind of a debacle. So yeah, I don't know. I could see that being like the low level like move that they make where it's like, okay, we spent $8 million or $9 million or whatever on Finnegan. And then they spend, 10 million, 12 million on Kim, something like that. If no one else picks him up, but it's going to be that kind of thing. Like if he's just still kind of sitting around and no one has gone out and pursued him. Yeah, then maybe they will. I would love to see Schwarber sign with the Pirates. It's going to be funny. It would be really funny to see the Pirates laying Kyle Schwarber while Scott Harris is in there with his little notebook going through all the minor leaguers. And the other things we were talking about, Scott Harris is not doing any work. The thing that's so funny about this is I'm sure Scott Harris works his freaking tail off. I'm sure he's like grinding over players we'll never even think about.
Always, yeah.
But what he won't do is take a risk. That they won't do. So.
Yeah, you have to
got to take him to the casino. Got to get him down to the casino and get him a little liquored up, let a little loose. Put that that McKenzie accountant vibe behind him for a little bit and get work that neck, shake it out a little bit.
Yeah, hey man.
Sometimes you got to roll the dice, Scott, baby. Come on.
He's a kid. I mean, he's the son of doctors, and doctors have to take risks in order to use science, but they take risks to save people's lives every day. So, Uper, what about you? What is your?
Well, my hope, and I don't know about not necessarily a prediction, is that they at least come away with 2 relievers. And I would love to see them change the dynamic of their bullpen by getting someone who can throw, 100 miles an hour and miss some bats. I've been talking about Robert Suarez for weeks now. Maybe that's unrealistic, but the good news with him is he's older. You won't have to commit too many years to him. I bet you could get him on a 2 or 3 year deal, maybe with an opt-out or something for him, whatever. I think he's the kind of guy. He pitched the 8th or the 9th at times last year, even though he ended up with a lot of saves. He also pitched the 8th when he needed to, because that's how the manager did it there. I think that would fit right in with what Hinch does. And he's the kind of guy, he's that fire-breathing reliever the Tigers have not had. I would like to see Finnegan, if they bring him back, to be the second of the 2 signings. If he's the marquee signing for the bullpen, then I'm just going to shrug and go, I'm kind of the low man on Finnegan. I always have been here. I think he's an okay pitcher, but I think that I just saw someone today talk about his stats with Detroit over 18 innings, and I was like, well, big deal. Okay, yeah, they were very good, but he gave up a lot of I know I've said this before. He gave up a lot of hard contact that found gloves when he came to Detroit. He wasn't really that overwhelming. He's been a lifetime, he's around a 3.60 ERA guy. He'll get the job done more often than he doesn't, but he's a guy you want in your bullpen, but I don't think you want him leading your bullpen. I would love it if they really shocked me and went out and got Suarez and Finnegan. Then I would think with Vest and Holton, you would have a bullpen you could do some really good things with.
Yeah, shorten up the game quite a bit. Mike, what about you?
I mean, I don't really know if you guys have said, I can really add anything what you guys have said. I think this is going to be another offseason. We're going to be left disappointed. This is going to be another offseason where we're going to have to be really hopeful in development of guys and hoping that we see all these young guys take another step forward. I think they will add a couple bullpen guys that are on the low end. I do think Kyle Finnegan will likely be the most expensive reliever that they add. And I think that they may add an extra bench piece or two just like for the offense, not a real impact guy. But otherwise, I don't see any significant changes. And it's just really just
yeah. Well, and I like Uper's idea because if they're not going to go get, Alex Bregman, and they're probably not, then I'm not going to be happy regardless. So just ignore what I want. And, but if you go get one really good reliever, like a guy who's going to lock down the late innings, you can at least sell that to the fan base as okay, we seriously addressed the bullpen as opposed to, the Shelby Millers and Tommy Caneleys and whatever else, John Brebbias of the world. And that does kind of free things up for the strategy of using your first 4 relievers rather than your back end of your pen and your 4th and 5th starter more interchangeably. And, maybe they do come up with some fancy, Kevin Cash Rays magic, like they did for a month or 2 last year. And, then you've got Vest and Suarez kind of definitively to hold leads in the late innings, and everybody else, suddenly is free to use however you want to. I mean, that's not a bad strategy. That would be a lot better than, just picking up Kyle Finnegan and, shuffling the minor league deck some more, for sure.
Yeah. No, and that's what, look, if they shock us all, That'd be awesome. But again, I don't. Hey, you know what? Look, if the Tigers are going to be competitive again and give us a chance to, if they give the chance for fans to watch a winner, great. But there's a part of Tigers Twitter or Tigers social media, whatever you want to call it, that's not going to be happy with that, and they're not going to be. And they want a World Series and bust. I get it. They want to win titles, but there's just this weird thing right now where I don't know. Like I feel like we're also trying to Detroit Tiger. Somebody says, "Oh, the Tigers. They need to change the name to Detroit Tiger Rays." Look, they come. I mean, if you look at the background, the collective backgrounds from Jeff Greenberg, everybody, like, look,
it's all Cubs background. Yeah.
It's Cubs, and then what was it? Rob Mentor is a Ray. The same.
Yeah, Mark Connor is a Padre.
Yeah. So these are guys who are used to not cutting checks. I mean, and look, and even the Cubs. I mean, being a Cubs fan right now, you know for a fact that you have money. You have more money than anybody, and they're just like, no.
Well, and the frustrating thing for the Tigers too is like they're a middle of the pack payroll team. It's not like they're like a small potato out there. You know, I mean, I think they were 17th last year, but they're probably going to be more like 13th or 12th, 14th, somewhere in there this year. So it's not like they're spending no money at all either, which all goes back to the salary cap, you know, and the need for something like that. But yeah, I mean, you know, what we wanted, and I think we talked about this a lot at the time. What we hoped with Scott Harris was that he would be able to do all the Rays type stuff really well, and then they would be able to add, you know, that one big piece here, and you know, and then you fill it in. You know, you do your Flaherty's, your Torres. Like if there's a target of opportunity on a one-year signing, that's good. It's just you know, it's just stopped short of that. And from the beginning of the rebuild, it's always been, you know, like, okay, it's pretty easy to get a team to 500, like relatively, because all the advantages are with you. But this is the point where it gets really hard, and you got to be real slick. And especially if they're not gonna go sign a Bregman or make a big trade for Kettle Marte to address the offense a little bit more. You know, it's just a tough gig. And so once again, the pressure is going to fall on the youngins. And we have, like, you know, at the same time we have Jeff Greenberg talking about how much AAA, you know, at bats matter and how they want to make sure those guys like don't get pushed too fast. And on the other hand, there's like, oh God, we really need Kevin McDonald to come up and you know, and boost this offense at some point, or you know, they're not going to have that good of a shot. So yeah, you know, they're caught in all these little webs. And if they do trade Tarek Skubal, make whoever it is take Javi Baez's contract too. I love Javi. Everybody knows I love Javi. I'm a big Javi guy, but that would free up a lot of payroll that isn't necessarily going to be utilized real well the next 2 years, let's say.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens, and we'll keep you posted if anything does happen. You know, we'll probably be doing a breakdown of it, and there's going to be our tool series coming out in our top 10 this week as well. So I was just talking to Chris over the weekend, and we'll be getting some stuff out there for you. So
do you I'm sorry, do you have a timetable for when you guys are going to release your prospect list again?
By this weekend.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah,
I've got mine about ready to go, but I like to I just kind of like to clear the stage and let you.
You know what? You and I will talk offline about that. We can coordinate that. But yeah, our top, basically, long story short, Chris and I, like, just between the two of us, just been slammed with stuff. And the good news is my wife did leave the house Saturday. We went out for sushi. Nice. And got some. Actually, we got ramen. I'm a big udon noodle fan. I love udon.
Oh yeah, nice.
So that's the way we went, and she got some the broth of noodle. By the way, ramen. Let's talk about ramen broth for a second. Healing powers, folks. Very good stuff. So yeah, I highly recommend.
I didn't know for the longest time, like, what is this that tastes so good in here? Like, I thought it was just going to be like chicken broth with egg and noodles in it, but no, it's got a whole different thing.
Yeah, it's IMA. It's IMA, I think it's called. Or I forgot. IMA. Thank you. You know which one I'm talking about? Madison Heights, Mike.
Yeah.
Yeah, fantastic.
That's like right down the road. Yeah.
Right
I get Shiramaru in West Bloomfield or Troy. Yeah. I like
Troy. Keep it
close to suburbs. Tell Sarah we love her. Sarah, if you're listening, shout out to you. Hope you're doing good.
Absolutely.
She's in the other room. She heard the shutout. You hear the shutout? You got a shout out.
I just interrupted the outro for this. Yeah. That's all right. Love you, Sarah.
So, thanks so much for listening. We appreciate it. And like I said, if there's anything that happens in the next couple of days, if the Tigers shock us all, we'll let you know. We'll talk to you soon. And I should end the stream right now. There we go. End the stream.